Chapter 9. Christmas. Buzz ran on the treadmill with a backpack full of everything drink powder. It might have weighed 60 pounds back on Earth. He still felt light as a feather. Buzz thought that, with a short running jump, he could make it to the other end of the cabin and onto the table where Peter and Tom sat playing cards. But he knew he'd hit his head on the ceiling if he tried. Buzz checked his wristwatch. The hands of his watch had just passed midnight, making it December 25th, 2094. That also made it day 111 of their journey, by Buzz's count. His watch was still set to Pacific time. So, people on the East Coast would be getting up to celebrate Christmas in just a few short hours. Then he remembered. He wasn't accounting for the time dilation that occurs at relativistic speeds. Hey, Titus, do you think people in New York have already opened presents? Titus lay on his couch, reading a book. He turned the page. What presents? It's Christmas. Oh, it is? I mean, I knew it was December. Buzz pressed the red stop button on the treadmill. My watch says it's 3:02 a.m. in New York. No, most people are probably still asleep. You don't get much time dilation going at less than 5% of the speed of light. What if you go at super close to the speed of light? Asked Buzz. Titus sat up on the couch and turned to face Buzz. His eyes hadn't lost their intelligence, but the trip hadn't done his appearance any favors. He'd lost his tan, and his shaved head now gave him a more sickly than robust appearance. The prolonged microgravity had made his face puffy. Then the time dilation gets pretty extreme. There's an equation for it. I know that if you travel for 1 year at 99.9% of the speed of light, more than 22 years will elapse on Earth. Of course, it isn't possible to accelerate to anywhere near those speeds. It would take unbelievable energy, and the impact from hitting solitary hydrogen atoms would be sure to destroy your ship. That's why we're not going to go over 1/6 the speed of light, which we'll reach in the second half of our journey. Still 200 days until the midpoint, said Buzz with a sigh. You'd better stop looking at your watch, Buzz, said Titus. You should take the thing off. It's just going to drive you crazy. Nah, I think it's just the being cooped up in here. You should use the VR headsets more. Yeah, those have helped for sure, said Buzz seriously. What part of Earth should I visit next? I like the Australian outback. Something about that red soil. Yeah, but I think I could use something greener right now, said Buzz. I miss Earth. I don't, said Titus flatly. I can't remember ever feeling more relaxed. No one, absolutely no one, can bother me out here. And I'm sure everyone's pulling their hair out, trying to figure out where I've gone. Titus chuckled. I just graduated, so my classmates won't notice, said Buzz. But I'm sure a few people will. Hey, I'm going to have another look through the periscope. You know it'll look exactly the same, right? Asked Titus. I know, but we've still gone 1 billion miles in the last day. I bet you're the guy who stares at the flight tracker map whenever you fly. It's better if you check after a nap, and then voila, you're halfway there. Okay, can you put me in a coma for a year? Suspended animation has never worked, said Titus, shaking his head. That's only in the movies. Besides, we're talking about years of your life. It'd be a shame to lose them. I don't care. Well, of course it'll feel like you're just killing time if you don't do anything productive. Learn a language or something. A language I'll never get to use. You're so young, Buzz. I don't mean for you to completely stop planning for a life on Earth. You've got a bright future ahead of you. Dude, we're already 100 billion miles from Earth. I find it really hard to believe we're ever going to make it back. Look through the periscope, Buzz. Buzz walked to the edge of the room and looked through a short steel tube that stuck out from the wall. What's the brightest object by far? Asked Titus. That's the sun, right? Yep, and hopefully it's never going to leave our sight. We have the best spaceship ever made, and I'm making you a promise, Buzz. Come hell, high water, or extraterrestrials, we are heading back there. I hope so, said Buzz, stepping away from the periscope and getting back on the treadmill. Chapter 10. Space Dust. They were only a few billion miles away, and Peter was checking the telescope every day. He'd go to the very center of the cabin and pull a black telescopic tube down from the ceiling. Then he would lie face up on the floor and look through it. He'd mutter such things as zoom in and pan left. Buzz didn't have the energy to ask what he was doing. He found it quite unbearable to do much of anything but lie down. The ship had rotated 180 degrees, so the rocket was now firing as though it wanted to get back to Earth. They were slowing down much more quickly than they had accelerated. Titus said the G-forces would prepare them for the planet's probable Earth-like gravity. Buzz could feel the weight of his lips and tongue when he spoke. The soft soles of his feet tingled when he got up on his swollen legs to go to the bathroom. He'd managed to keep his balance, but just barely. Titus had fallen a couple of times on his way to the bathroom. When Buzz would stand up, everything now looked a few inches higher. Was he just more hunched over now? He felt like he'd actually shrunk. He couldn't manage more than 2 minutes of power walking on the treadmill. Buzz figured that his 19-year-old body was giving him a sneak preview of old age. One afternoon, Buzz found himself in his usual position, flat on his back. He dozed off, dreaming that he and his crewmates were imprisoned by giant, red, crab-like aliens. The prison was filled with green light, and Peter and Titus argued about whose fault it was that they'd left Earth. Titus insisted that it was really Peter's fault for discovering the planet and telling him it might support alien life. Buzz heard a loud bang and felt his body push violently against his chest straps. "What happened?" cried Buzz. "Dust particle, maybe," Titus called back from his own couch. "Everyone okay?" "I'm good," said Peter's voice. "Tom?" Silence. "Tom," Peter repeated, louder this time. Buzz could see Peter get up from his couch and look around the room. "God!" Buzz unbuckled his straps and stood up on wobbly legs. Tom lay face down on the floor, his head bleeding slowly. Peter got there in a flash. He pushed and pulled with all his might to roll over Tom's muscular figure, but to no avail. Buzz hobbled over to try to help. They still couldn't do it. "Titus, do you think—" said Buzz. "There's a first aid kit on the shelf," said Titus, sitting up on his couch and looking even paler than usual. "But it doesn't look like it's any use, guys. We should have brought a doctor," he added. Peter checked Tom's wrist for a pulse. He shook his head. There was a long silence. "We should bury him on the planet," said a crestfallen Peter. "It's what he would have wanted. He loved space." Titus nodded. "We'll name the planet after him. Tom Gaia. Planet Gaia." Buzz sat down on the carpet, which now had a red stain. So, what do we do with him? Asked Buzz. We can't open the door, said Titus matter-of-factly. Won't he decompose? Asked Buzz, hoping not to sound insensitive. Yeah, he will, said Titus. There are bacteria on the ship. Our bodies brought them. And we won't get to the planet for weeks, right? Asked Buzz. Titus shook his head. Buzz looked at Peter for ideas, but he was sitting on the floor and covering his face with his hands. So, Buzz trailed off. Come over here, Buzz, said Titus. Buzz dragged himself over to Titus's couch and sat himself down. Let's give Peter some space for now, Buzz. They were close. Buzz sat there in silence, regretting that he had ever come on the mission. This shit is too dangerous, he said finally. We need to stay buckled in as much as possible, said Titus. But it's no good having him here bleeding on the carpet. I don't know much about diseases, but I don't think it's safe to keep him there. What do we do? Asked Buzz. We don't have a trash chute. Yeah, closest thing would be the toilet. Maybe one of our legs would fit, but Tom's just too big. Okay, and please don't tell me you want to cut him into pieces, said Buzz. No, said Titus, shaking his head. I mean, we have guns, but there's too much risk of shooting a hole in the ship. Okay, any way of freezing or incinerating him? Ugh, I wish, said Titus. Well, we could turn the thermostat way down. Sounds miserable, Buzz replied. We can wear our spacesuits for warmth, and the weight of the suits will really get us ready for arrival. Buzz groaned. Chapter 11. Terra Firma. We're coming in hot. Those were the words that came to Buzz's mind. He knew he'd heard them on TV somewhere. But he knew that wasn't right. The planet clearly had little atmosphere, and the ship wasn't burning up on entry. They were now descending very slowly, but the G-forces were stronger than they had ever been since liftoff. Buzz knew he was feeling the grip of an alien world. Would there really be aliens on it? Would they look like the giant crabs in his dream? Buzz felt a thud, and then the engine shut off. It was the first true silence Buzz had experienced in almost 2 years. He'd gotten so used to the white noise of the engine that it had been hard to even imagine silence. Titus stood up and walked towards the door. Peter and Buzz followed. The three of them were already fully suited. Shall we go get Tom from the closet? Asked Titus. Maybe he should be first. They all walked to a small closet that jutted out into the circular cabin. This might smell, said Titus, lowering his visor. Buzz lifted a stiff arm up to his face and lowered his helmet visor until it locked closed with a click. The visor stayed crystal clear as Buzz continued breathing. Titus turned the doorknob and opened. Tom's crumpled figure lay there on the floor. Buzz tried not to look too closely. They pushed, pulled, and lifted Tom to the front door. Titus pulled a glass screen down from the ceiling, cutting him and Tom off from Buzz and Peter. Then he unbolted 3 heavy locks on the door and pulled it open. Total darkness lay beyond. Titus pushed with his legs until Tom rolled out the open door. Buzz thought he heard a distant thud. Or was it his imagination? Instead of following Tom, Titus closed the door again. Then he raised the glass divider and patted Buzz on the shoulder. Shut the door behind you. Buzz heard it on the radio inside of his helmet. Was Titus too scared to go first, or was he just being generous? Buzz walked to the door and Titus lowered the glass behind him. The door felt even heavier than it had back on Earth 2 years earlier. but it gave way. Buzz reached up and turned on his headlamp. Then he looked down. He could just make out a dark, solid-looking landscape. Buzz lowered himself onto the ladder, then reached to his right and strained to push the door closed. There had to be a better, more sophisticated design, Buzz thought. He descended slowly, holding on for dear life. It was now just him and the shiny gold ladder in front of him. Nothing else mattered. Finally, a minute later, Buzz stuck out his boot to take another step. But where there should have been another rung, there wasn't any. Buzz turned his head, and the light of his headlamp revealed smooth, gray stone just below his feet. He took a deep breath and jumped off the ladder. He landed heavily, leaving no doubt that he stood on terra firma. Buzz took a few slow steps into the darkness and came upon Tom's lifeless figure. It was an ominous sight. Would they all meet such an end on this planet? Then Buzz remembered. He and Tom were now the first humans to set foot outside of the solar system. It's hard to say that Tom really set foot, Buzz thought wryly. Buzz felt his gaze drawn up to his only source of light, the sky. He stared at the pinpricks of light above, feeling comforted that there was light somewhere in the universe. And there it was, the brightest object in the sky. It was Buzz's very own sun. He remembered reading as a kid about how the ancient Incans worshipped it. Now he felt like getting on his knees and doing the same. G-type main sequence star. Buzz turned and saw Peter standing next to him. Sometimes referred to as a yellow dwarf, but it's actually brighter than most stars in the Milky Way. Distance of 957 billion miles, give or take. Scientific name, the Sun. Amazing that it is so bright from so far away, said Buzz. Peter groaned. What? What is it? Peter was looking down at Tom's lifeless figure. We can't just leave him here, said Peter. It's all solid rock here, Titus chimed in. We can't bury him. Okay, so which way do we go? Titus pointed over his shoulder. They walked slowly and in single file across the smooth, rocky landscape. The suit and pack felt pretty heavy, but Buzz knew that he had it better than previous generations of astronauts. He figured he could make it at least a couple of miles. Finally, out of breath, they made it over a small hill. Before them lay a vast area of light. It looked like a structure of some kind, perhaps made of glass. It wasn't very tall, but it seemed to stretch to either side for as far as the eye could see. Titus took out his pistol. I'd rather not, said Peter. A pair of binoculars would be more useful. Yeah, sorry, said Titus. It's just really tough to install inside the helmet. Why isn't it green? Asked Buzz. Your guess is as good as mine, said Titus. Buzz touched the pistol in his belt, but decided to follow Peter's example. He wanted to come in peace. They took small, cautious steps forward. Look, I think there's something green inside, said Buzz, pointing. A lot of green somethings, said Peter. Trees? Almost looks like a greenhouse, suggested Titus. The three of them just stood there. Do you think we should go any closer? Asked Peter. What did we come here for? Said Titus, as though the answer was obvious. These are our green stars. Buzz walked forward, leading the way. Finally, they were right up against it. The trees all looked the same under the glass ceiling's bright white lights. Each was about 6 feet tall and bore brown fruit that hung from green branches. The leaves were heart-shaped and about a foot across. Buzz looked down at the floor. It was covered in a green, murky liquid. The room looked huge, maybe 100 feet long. On the other side was black, empty space, and 3 small, white figures. Aliens? Wait, was he looking at a reflection? He looked to the right and saw an infinite series of reflections, one greenhouse room within another. Buzz remembered being in his bathroom on Earth and noticing the same effect when his hand mirror reflected the wall mirror. Maybe the walls were all mirrors. Either that or this world was operating under a different set of physical laws. Was he really looking through regular, human Earth glass? Buzz tapped on the wall, but couldn't hear anything. "How do we get in?" asked Buzz. "There has to be a door," said Titus. "I'll go right. You guys go left." "Titus, I really think we should stick together," Peter objected. "I mean, do you realize how dangerous this is? We should never separate under any circumstances." "I guess you're right," said Titus. "For a moment I felt like we were back on Earth." They walked together, past row after row of the same trees. They could see now that there were separate rooms, each divided by the mirror walls. "I'm going to have to pee soon," said Buzz. He had almost wet himself from seeing their own reflection again. Every time he thought it might be aliens. "Okay, if you want to risk your manhood for science," said Peter. "Just make sure to pee into the shade." "Or I can pee on the trees," said Buzz. "Come on, let's break the glass." "The trees would die," said Titus. "Well, I don't see a door, do you?" "Just doesn't seem like a diplomatic start to our mission, going around breaking things," said Titus. "Should we call it a day, then?" asked Peter. "Shouldn't stray too far from the ship." "Yeah," said Titus. "Not a bad first day of exploration. Congratulations are in order, men. We have found alien life. They may only be trees, but sentient life can't be far away." Chapter 12. Empty. They'd been there for 4 Earth days, and they still couldn't find a door. "Maybe there really is no door," suggested Titus as they sat together, sipping everything drinks inside plain white mugs. Titus held his sugarless plain drink, while Peter drank a chocolate one. Buzz opted for strawberry. "If only we could get on top of the ceiling," said Peter. "Sure I can't try to detach the ship's ladder?" "Yeah, it wasn't meant to be removable," said Titus. "You'd probably seriously damage the ship." "So we traveled 1,000,000,000,000 miles, but we can't make it up a 30-foot wall?" Buzz asked, exasperated. "You'd probably fall through the glass anyway," Titus shrugged. "Why would there be a door on the ceiling?" "Aliens can be weird," said Buzz. "True," said Titus. "Well, they're bound to show up sometime. They must harvest the fruit eventually." "And they're just going to show us the door?" asked Peter incredulously. "We'll just have to see," said Titus. "Good news is they are unlikely to attack. As they say, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones." "Do you think anyone actually lives there?" asked Buzz nervously. "Someone must be there to look after everything," said Titus. "Okay, ready to go out?" Buzz nodded. The 3 of them put on their helmets, opened the door, and climbed down the ladder. Buzz was getting used to it. It felt like this might be the entire scope of his extraterrestrial future, suiting up and commuting to this greenhouse. Or maybe not. Would today be the day? Would the aliens be reasonable? Their trees and greenhouses looked so peaceful, so maybe the owners would be too. He'd given up on speculating about their appearance. It was anyone's guess. So he decided to imagine them as the little green Martians of science fiction. That wasn't so scary. They were nearly at the greenhouse. Buzz remembered how, the first time, it had felt like such a long walk from the ship. "I'll go on my own this time," said Buzz. "Copy that," said Titus. Peter and Titus turned left, and Buzz went right. Buzz gave only a cursory glance to the glass rooms. He'd already inspected them on previous walks, and wanted to see as many new rooms as possible. He felt a little stronger now. His body seemed to be adapting to the gravity. Buzz knew he'd make it a lot farther this time. Titus and Peter wouldn't be there to slow him down. Though alone, he kept his gun holstered, and he didn't bother to look over his shoulder anymore. "Let them come," Buzz said to himself. He stopped, then turned to examine each room. By stopping first, his reflection would be stationary, and he wouldn't keep having extraterrestrial false alarms. Each room still looked identical. Even the trees were of more or less the same shape and height. The silence was eerie to Buzz. He couldn't hear anything except for his own breathing and the faint, muffled sound of his boots scraping against the stony ground. Maybe there was a thin atmosphere after all. Otherwise, how could he hear the sound of his footfalls? If there was no atmosphere, there ought to be no sound at all. Buzz looked up from his feet and then saw something out of the corner of his eye. Or rather, didn't see something. The room was empty. The lights were on, but there were no trees. Just the same green liquid on the floor. "Titus, Peter, I found an empty room." Buzz stood there, waiting for a reply. "Hey, Buzz," Titus came in loud and clear. "What do you mean, empty?" "Just lights and green liquid," said Buzz. "No trees." "Nice find, Buzz," replied Peter. "We'll all come back to it tomorrow." "Tomorrow? But I'm here now," said Buzz. "Can I break the glass? At least we won't have any dead trees on our consciences." "It's too dangerous to go on your own," Titus insisted. "If there are hostile aliens, it probably won't matter if I'm alone or not," said Buzz. "Come on, I can do it. I've a lot of energy today." "If we're going into the greenhouse, I think we should do it together," Titus explained. Buzz sighed. He took out his pistol and hit the glass gently with the metal butt of the gun. Glass seems pretty strong." "Come on, Buzz," Titus exclaimed. "Stop fooling around." Buzz hit it harder. Still nothing. "Okay, guys, you win. This isn't breaking so easy. We might have to shoot it." Titus breathed a sigh of relief. "Let's head back." Chapter 13. Shattered. Titus and Peter weighed every alternative to breaking the glass. They wanted to try digging a tunnel under the greenhouse, considering that a more polite way of making an entrance. But they finally had to admit that they didn't have the right equipment. The three of them suited up for their 7th expedition. This time, they mixed some drink powder into their hydration packs. They didn't plan on making it back in time for lunch. Buzz led the way toward the empty room, making a beeline across the flat, dark expanse of rock. They didn't need to check every room this time. Buzz just wanted to get there with as much energy to spare as possible. They got to the greenhouse and kept going right, stopping briefly at each room. It couldn't be much farther. Trees, trees, trees. Then Buzz saw movement from out of the corner of his eye. He turned. A few tree branches shook. Had a breeze blown through the greenhouse? Had an alien just been in the room? Where was the empty room, anyhow? Buzz couldn't be sure, but the landscape outside looked familiar. There was no landmark to go by, only small bumps and grooves in the smooth, rocky landscape. Had the aliens done the tree planting in less than 24 hours? The three of them just stood there, watching the trees. The branches finally stopped shaking. "I think someone saw us coming," said Peter. "3 trees are missing," said Titus. "Look at the back. All of the other rooms have 36. Sure enough, there was a big, empty area in the back. "Come on, it's time," said Buzz. "And kill the trees they just worked so hard to plant?" Titus responded incredulously. "They're never going to invite us in," said Buzz. "Just look how they reacted." "Let's stand watch," said Titus. "See if they come back and finish the job." So they sat and observed. They were all too nervous to talk much. Titus was the only one with a wristwatch. Buzz had finally taken his off for the last year of the flight, but it seemed to him that 30 minutes must have passed. "I don't think they're coming back, Titus," said Buzz. "Well, we're not going to make contact by sitting in the ship, and the chances of violence go way up if we damage their food source. We've come this far, Buzz. Let's just make sure we do it the right way." Yeah, I get it," said Buzz. "But at this rate we actually will be making contact on our ship. They'll probably kidnap us one of these days." "I think I'd actually prefer that to breaking in," said Titus. "At least we won't have been the aggressors." "That's insane," said Buzz. "Peter, what do you think?" Peter's head was turned to the right, away from Buzz. "What? What is it?" asked Buzz. "Looks like a ladder," he said, pointing. Some 100 feet to the right, something shone in the darkness. It leaned against the top of the greenhouse. They got up and walked over to it. It was a ramp of sorts, made of smooth glass. Buzz tested it with his foot. It wasn't too slippery. "Do you think this was here all along, or did someone leave it for us?" asked Titus. "I think we would have noticed it," said Peter. "It wasn't here yesterday," declared Buzz. Buzz climbed up the ramp and stepped cautiously onto the glass ceiling. It held firm. He could see nothing beyond the greenhouse, just blackness. Was he seeing the edge, or did the edge fall off over the curvature of the planet? Perhaps, off in the distance, he could just make out a rectangular corner. It was too hard to tell. Still, it was the biggest darned greenhouse Buzz had ever seen. Peter and Titus had joined him. "It looks like a city," said Titus. They looked down as they walked ahead. What lay in the room beyond? More trees. They had crossed half a dozen rooms when Titus cried out. "There!" he shouted, pointing directly below. A green, hairless creature of humanoid form lay on its back, submerged in the green liquid. Its eyes were closed, and its face wrinkled. It looked frail and rather shorter than a human. They stood there in shocked silence for a moment. "Is he dead?" asked Buzz. "Who knows?" said Peter. "Maybe that's their idea of a vacation." Buzz knelt and tapped on the glass ceiling. The figure didn't stir. "I assume they breathe air," said Titus. "I think our friend has seen better days." Buzz lay face down on the glass to get a closer view of the creature. The three of them stayed there for 5 minutes, just staring. "Maybe this is what they do with their dead," suggested Titus. "Use them as fertilizer for their trees." "Well, let's see if we can go find ourselves a live specimen," suggested Peter. Buzz had forgotten his hurry. He'd been too busy contemplating the fact that they were the first humans in all history to lay their eyes on extraterrestrial beings. "Okay, enough of the old guy," said Buzz, hobbling to his feet. He hoped that he didn't meet the same fate as the alien. They kept walking. Finally, an even brighter room lay ahead. Buzz got there first and looked down. More aliens. They lay flat on their backs on a dry glass floor, with black masks over their eyes. They looked young and healthy, and their abdomens slowly rose and fell. "What the hell are they doing?" Peter asked nervously. "Sleeping?" suggested Buzz. "Then why doesn't someone turn down the lights?" "Maybe they prefer sleeping in the light." "Then what's with the masks?" Buzz had no answer. "It's almost like they're sunbathing," Titus suggested. "Perhaps this is what they do all day," said Peter. Buzz knelt down and knocked on the glass with his gloved hand. The aliens didn't stir. He took out his pistol and held it by the barrel. "Careful," Titus warned. Buzz tapped on the glass. All at once, the aliens sprung up and took off their masks. Buzz gasped and instinctively pointed the gun. "Put it away!" Titus yelled. But Buzz was too shocked to listen. 25 pairs of yellow eyes stared back at them. "Drop the damn gun, Buzz!" Titus shouted. Buzz dropped it. The gun fell through the glass. The aliens ran for it and were gone in a flash. Chapter 14. L.O. The lights stayed on. Buzz just stood there in shock, and Titus and Peter stared. "Well, you did tell me to drop it," said Buzz. "Hey, you got your wish," said Titus. "We finally broke the glass." "Yeah, but maybe we should keep looking for a door," said Peter. "I think they put the ramp out for us, meaning for us to find a door." "Oh, come on!" Buzz exclaimed, exasperated. "I'm with Buzz," said Titus. "It's time to go in." "It's quite a drop," said Peter, looking down. "Their yoga mats, or whatever they are, will help break the fall," Titus opined, pointing out the green mats that the aliens had been lying on. "But first we're going to need a bigger hole." Titus kneeled down next to Buzz and struck the glass gently with the butt of his pistol. The hole widened. After a few strikes, it was big enough for a man in a spacesuit. "Buzz, the honor is yours. Peter and I will lower you down as far as we can." Titus and Peter lay face down on the glass, and held on to Buzz's hands as he slid in feet first. When Buzz was fully inside, they let him go. It was the biggest fall of his life. Buzz hit the mat hard, knocking the wind out of him. He found himself with his visor pressed against the glass floor and the dark rock beneath. "Nice job, Buzz," said Titus. "Now stack up the mats for Peter and I." Buzz rolled over and slowly pulled himself to his feet. He collected a few of the mats. They seemed to be made of leaves and filled with a hay-like substance. He stacked them 8 high, so they were level with his waist. "Good enough?" "Keep going," said Titus. Buzz stacked them to eye level. "Okay, jump." "Wait a minute," Peter said to Titus. "What is it?" "What if we don't make it back? No one on Earth will ever know where we went." "As you know, Peter, that is a chance I am willing to take." "And this'll sound crazy," said Peter, "but what if... Suppose we were to go home now and declare mission accomplished?" Buzz looked up at them through the cracked glass, dumbfounded. "Seriously," said Titus, "we'd be coming home empty-handed." "We can take some photos and bring souvenirs. Maybe even bring back the old guy who looked kind of dead." This isn't just a scouting mission, said Titus. It's up to us to really get to know the aliens. A dead specimen would decompose by the time we get back to Earth. Well, they don't seem keen on getting to know us. Look how they went running. Would you rather they'd shot at us? No, said Peter. Well, I gotta be honest with you. Peter's voice wavered. You didn't understand what you signed up for? Asked Titus. Well, none of us did. I don't want to die. Well, okay. We can't force you to go in. If you want to wait in the ship, I guess that's fine. If you don't hear from us for a month, maybe you can head back to Earth. What do you think, Buzz? I guess, said Buzz reluctantly. Well, one thing's for sure, said Titus. I'm going in. Titus made the jump. He fell off the mats and wiped out on the floor. Buzz helped him to his feet. What's it going to be, Peter? Titus gasped, struggling to his feet. Buzz rearranged the pile of mats. Okay, fine. Peter jumped and fared little better than Titus. Titus helped Peter to his feet and hugged him. I did it for Tom, said Peter. So, where's the door? Buzz looked around. Once again, no door was visible. This is getting ridiculous, said Buzz. Did either of you see how they left? Do they just teleport? It just seemed like they disappeared through the walls, said Titus. The mirrors made it hard to tell what was going on. Buzz walked toward one of the mirror walls. I've been wanting to try this for a long time, he said. Buzz pushed on the mirror glass. It didn't budge. Don't even think about breaking it, said Titus. Keep pushing in other places. Buzz tried again in another spot, and a door swung open. Hurry, Titus yelled, running through the door. Buzz and Peter followed, and the door closed behind them. What? Said Buzz, looking back at the now invisible door. The atmosphere, Titus explained. We let the air out of the other room. Oh, so is there really air in here? It was another tree-filled room, and they stood halfway up to their knees in green liquid. What is this stuff? Asked Buzz, splashing it with his foot. Hard to tell, said Titus. Can't really smell or touch anything in these suits. So, wait, if there are trees, does that mean there's oxygen? If they're like trees on Earth, said Titus. But they could be totally different. Could be. Okay, so none of us should try lifting our visors. Probably not. Peter's voice broke in. Already did. Buzz didn't hear it through his radio. The sound came through the air, from outside of his helmet. Peter stood there with his naked, grinning face. Jesus, Peter! Titus exclaimed. At first I just opened it a tiny crack, Peter shrugged. I think I feel a bit lightheaded. Maybe you'd better lower your visor, said Titus. No, I'm fine. Peter staggered backwards. Buzz sprang forward and pulled Peter's visor down. I'm okay. Were you losing consciousness? Asked Titus. No, I don't think so, Peter said, breathing deeply. Maybe these aliens don't need as much oxygen as we do, said Titus. They don't seem to be doing much aerobic activity anyway. Buzz chuckled. It was a relief to know he probably wouldn't die in there if his suit sprung a leak. Do you think I should try one of the fruit? Asked Buzz. It would be great to have some real food. Can't be any riskier than what Peter just did, said Titus. Buzz plucked one of the brown fruits from a tree. It looked and felt like a pear. He raised his visor and quickly took a tiny bite out of it. It was sour and slightly sweet. Didn't taste bad. Buzz took another, larger bite, then closed his visor as he chewed. "How is it, Buzz?" asked Peter. "This stuff isn't bad." Buzz held out the fruit. "Man, I'm glad to hear it," said Peter. "Let's just wait a minute to see if Buzz has any adverse reactions," Titus cautioned. Buzz swallowed. He opened his visor again and continued eating the fruit. "So you're just going to stand there watching me?" Titus nodded. Buzz felt a bit lightheaded and closed his visor again. "I'm telling you, it's delicious. There aren't even any seeds inside." Peter plucked a piece of fruit from the nearest tree. "I'm going to abstain, in case something happens," said Titus, looking around. "I bet they're still watching us." Buzz and Peter each grabbed another piece of fruit. "Oh my fucking god!" Buzz jumped, accidentally flinging the fruit in the air. Titus pointed at one of the trees. Among the green branches, Buzz could make out two small, unblinking yellow eyes. He'd seen those eyes before. They were close, maybe just 20 feet away. Buzz grabbed Titus's arm. "Where is it?" asked Peter. "Shh! It's talking." Buzz didn't know what Titus was talking about. He raised his visor, without taking his eyes off the alien. "Hello, hello, hello." The voice sounded high and unnatural, like it was coming from an artificial electric voice box. "Hello?" Buzz reluctantly answered back. "That's it," said Titus, now with his visor up. "He's saying hello." "What?" "They must have gotten the care package." "The what?" "One of the packages. We tried to aim them for the green lights. He must have learned a few words of English." Buzz remembered now. Titus had told him about it on that first visit to the ship, all the way back on Earth. He hadn't thought much of it at the time. It had sounded like a kind of silly idea, especially since he didn't think there would be aliens. But now he was staring one right in the eyes. Its head was human-shaped, but with heavier brows and a weaker chin. It didn't appear to have either ears or nose, and its mouth was a small circular hole that gave the impression of perpetual surprise. A green hand stuck out from the tree. It moved back and forth. "I see it now!" cried Peter. "What's it doing?" "Holy crap," said Buzz. "I can't believe it," said Titus. "He must have learned it from the talking children's books. Everyone wave back!" The three of them waved. "Do you think his friends are waiting in the next room?" asked Buzz. "Who cares? Let's get to know our friend first," said Titus. "My name is Titus," he slowly articulated while pointing at himself. The alien lowered its arm and stayed perfectly still. "What is your name?" asked Titus, pointing at the alien. Still no reaction. "Guess his English education didn't progress very far," said Peter. "Anyone want to get closer?" asked Buzz. "He doesn't seem very scary." "We need to avoid confrontation at all costs," said Titus. "If our suits are damaged, we may never make it back to the ship." "Jesus, you're right," said Peter. "So what do we do?" "Let him make the first move," said Titus. "We're just going to wait here?" asked Buzz. "For how long?" "As long as it takes," said Titus, sitting down in the shallow green liquid. "Okay, I'll play along for a while." Buzz bent down, noticing what appeared to be green tentacles beneath the water. He sat himself on a smooth patch of the glass floor. "I guess these are the tree roots," commented Buzz. "I think I'd rather stand," said Peter. The three of them watched the unblinking alien for untold minutes. "This is really freaky," said Buzz. "Maybe we can stop staring at him." "No, especially with the mirrors, we might lose him in an instant," said Titus. "Well, you two can keep watching him. I'm turning my radio off," said Buzz, leaning back against the mirror wall. Chapter 15. The Decision. All was silent as Buzz looked up at the Milky Way through the glass ceiling. The stars didn't twinkle like they did on Earth. Buzz figured it had something to do with the lack of atmosphere. Everything looked a little less cold and lonely now. For the first time, Buzz was not searching frantically for the sun. He knew there was life elsewhere in the universe. Perhaps there were thousands of advanced races out there. Buzz didn't fancy meeting all of them, though. He was sure he wouldn't live to tell the tale. He wanted to survive. He wanted to make it home. But how? A thought came to him. Grab the alien and run. Was the alien still there? Buzz lowered his gaze. He couldn't find it. His heart skipped a beat. Then he saw the little yellow eyes and sighed with relief. Would Peter and Titus think him a coward if he told them his idea? But it was ludicrous. How could anyone think him a coward? He had already risked his life just by joining the mission, and he'd been the one who was most eager to break into the greenhouse. If they could bring an alien home, that really would be mission accomplished, wouldn't it? Even if it died en route, they'd probably be the most famous people on Earth, maybe of all time. Would they ever have a better chance? Buzz's heart pounded against his chest. He turned on his radio. "Hey guys, I'm just wondering, will we ever have a better chance to get ourselves a live specimen?" Buzz continued staring at the alien. "Given how fast they can run, I'd say we never stood much of a chance," said Titus. "But Buzz is right," said Peter. "We may never have a better chance." "And then what?" "We bring it back to the ship," said Buzz. "But it'll die outside of the greenhouse. We don't know if the alien would survive even a second of exposure." Buzz felt stupid for not thinking of that. That seemed to rule it out. "It's completely impossible to move the ship right next to the greenhouse?" Peter suggested. "As I've told you, Peter, the ship is programmed for one thing and one thing only: to fly to this planet and then to go back to Earth. By the way, do you remember where I kept the launch key?" "Affirmative," said Peter. They sat in silence for a minute, all still staring at the alien. Then it came to Buzz. Could the alien wear his suit? "I can think of one other possibility," said Buzz. "What's that?" asked Titus. "I could lend him my suit." "You'd die." "Maybe not," said Buzz. "Even if that worked, and the alien somehow survived the journey to Earth, I don't think it would be a good idea. We came here to get to know these aliens, not to kidnap one of them, make a mad run for it, and then return as heroes to Earth. That certainly wasn't the point of sending the care packages. By the way, the shipping didn't exactly come cheap." "On the other hand, Titus, think how excited everyone would get about space and science if we brought an alien home," said Peter. "You of all people can understand that humans need to get off Earth." I do. But they're going to make us tell them where we found the alien. I wouldn't be surprised if they torture us for the information." "Oh, come on. You think the U.S. government would do that?" "I do indeed. though we'll probably be in the custody of whichever country we land in. And you really think they'd send soldiers here and kill or kidnap the aliens? I sure do. People are jerks. Look what they've done to the beautiful animal life on our own planet. This beautiful green creature and its delicate greenhouses will be next. So then why do you even want humans to survive? Peter persisted. It doesn't sound like you do. They're good people too, but we just can't seem to help oppressing other species. I agree that they're good people, said Peter. And I want to go home and see them. I want to see my wife. But we just got here. This ain't no picnic, Titus. If we go in further, I don't think we'll ever make it out alive. We've already risked our lives. I may be a scientist, but I for one am not willing to die for science. What do you say, Buzz? Asked Titus. I say we go catch ourselves an alien, said Buzz. So it's 2 against 1? Silence. You'll always be our leader, said Peter. Silence. Okay, Ben. Any suggestions on how to catch this green devil? Surround him, I guess, said Buzz. Something tells me he won't take kindly to that, replied Titus. Let's first try playing nice. Try smiling at him. The 3 of them raised their visors, then smiled and waved as they talked in slow and high voices. Come here, little alien. Hey, little guy, it's okay. Come out and play with us. Come say hello. It didn't seem to work. I'm getting lightheaded, said Peter, closing his visor. Buzz and Titus followed suit. You know, even if we get him to come, there's no way he will just let us stuff him inside a spacesuit, said Buzz. Buzz, I just remembered, your gun, Titus exclaimed. What? You want me to shoot it? Where is it? Asked Titus. Buzz looked down at his belt. The gun wasn't there. Oh, crap! I left it in the other room. Can you go get it? Sure, thanks. But you guys have guns too, you know. Yours is special, said Titus. Okay. Buzz found the door again and leaped through it. The other room was just as they had left it. Buzz didn't see the gun. Could it be under the mats? He shifted the stack of mats and found a small hole in the floor. The gun lay just below on the gray, rocky surface of the planet. He picked up the heavy metal gun, wondering at his lack of attentiveness. The excitement must have gotten to him. Buzz returned to the greenhouse room, trying once again not to let too much air out. The alien was still there, hiding out in the tree. Okay, Titus, what's so special about the gun? Buzz spoke into the radio. It's a tranquilizer gun, loaded with a single dart. What? But it looks just like yours. I had it modified, Buzz. You were only 17. Buzz just stared at him in disbelief. You didn't trust me. I trusted you enough to bring you on the mission, Buzz. But not enough to carry a gun. People younger than me are in the army, you know. Yes, well, this particular operation is certainly not about overwhelming firepower. It's hard even to imagine a scenario where shooting would be a good idea. But I suppose such a scenario does exist. Patronizing or not, Peter interrupted, it seems we should be thanking our lucky stars just now. But we're going to need even more luck. You've only got one shot, Buzz. Buzz turned his attention once more to the alien. Its eyes were closed. Why are its eyes closed? Asked Buzz. Wow, maybe he got so bored he fell asleep, suggested Peter. Well, that's strange, said Titus. Hold your fire, Buzz. I know, I know. So is that what they were doing in the other room? Sleeping? Then why isn't he lying down? The alien was slumped over on a branch. I don't know, said Titus. Try talking to him. Buzz lifted his visor. Hey, little green alien, are you awake? Hey! No reaction. I feel lightheaded, said Buzz, closing his visor. The air. What about it? Asked Titus. Maybe the air quality got worse again when Buzz left the room, said Peter, and maybe the alien passed out from lack of oxygen. Poor guy, said Titus. And, of course, we let the oxygen out the first time we came in, too. Maybe that's why he was acting lethargic. We'd better get him out of here, said Peter. But we'll have to find a way around the broken room. Is there a side door? The three of them took a minute to feel out the walls. Peter and Titus pressed gently on the glass. You have to push a little harder, said Buzz. Found it, Peter exclaimed. Okay, let's hope there aren't any aliens on the other side, said Buzz. Who's going to pick up the alien? Asked Titus. You can have the honors, said Buzz. You let me off the ship first. And I already discovered the planet, said Peter. Titus nodded. I just hope he doesn't bite. Titus walked over to the alien and picked him up slowly. He held him carefully, even reverentially, in his arms. Heavy? Asked Peter. Surprisingly light, lower density than a human. The three of them walked out, through the side door. Chapter 16. Titus's Sacrifice. Buzz looked out at a surreal scene. Peter and Titus walked almost shoulder to shoulder across the planet's barren surface. Between them, they carried what looked like a third astronaut. For Buzz, it felt as though he was looking at his own lifeless figure. It was his spacesuit, after all. The three figures grew darker as they moved farther from the greenhouse. Buzz stood in an off-white, skin-tight jumpsuit, his face pressed against glass that was foggy from his breath. Couldn't they at least have stopped to wave? I'm alone, loneliest man in the world, said Buzz aloud. That wasn't quite true, Buzz thought to himself. He probably felt even lonelier when his father died in Antarctica, and he'd felt just as unsure of his own survival. But that time, he at least didn't have to worry about being kidnapped by aliens. Buzz touched the gun on his right hip, just to make sure it was still there. Titus had given him his pistol. He would have liked to have had a couple of practice shots. He never even fired a gun, after all. Considering the circumstances, he felt unbelievably comfortable. The room was a little warm and humid for his liking, but the air was breathable and the green liquid didn't bother his bare feet. Buzz watched Peter and Titus disappear over the top of a small hill. They would now be able to see the ship, or rather the LED light that they had set on the ground next to the ship. Why couldn't the ship just have had built-in exterior lights? Maybe along the side of the ladder, so people could see where they were going. Buzz turned away and looked at the side mirror wall to his left. He saw his own reflection. Skinny, but not bad, thought Buzz. It was the first time since Earth that he'd seen a full-length reflection of himself. Without a spacesuit, that is. He'd stopped working out much in the last few weeks of the flight, and it showed. Buzz forced himself to smile. He imagined those perfect teeth being plastered on magazine covers. What would life be like back on Earth? One thing was for sure. There would be no need to go to college anymore. He'd be able to live off the autographs and TV appearances. Maybe he'd even write a book about it all. Buzz stood there, admiring himself. The minutes passed. Where were Peter and Titus anyway? Buzz looked out the window. No one was out there. Buzz shook his head. They didn't even bother to wave goodbye. That showed how much they cared about him. But maybe they needed both hands to carry the alien, Buzz thought. Calm down, they aren't leaving without you. Buzz wondered what his father would have told him. Calm down, Buzz. Be grateful for what you have, he said aloud. Those were his father's words when he had started complaining about having to eat noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on their Antarctic expedition. Just then, a lone figure appeared over the hilltop. It looked like it might be Titus, who was a bit more heavily built than Peter. He carried only a small white bag. It didn't look big enough for a spacesuit. What the hell, Titus? Buzz exclaimed. How did Titus expect him to make it back to the ship without a suit? Titus waved, and Buzz waved back. When Titus got closer, Buzz pointed to the white bag and threw his hands in the air. Titus didn't seem to notice. He walked to the greenhouse, disappearing into the room that he and Peter had broken out of. A few minutes later, Titus entered Buzz's room through the door farthest from the window. He raised his visor. Peter's with the alien. It woke up and we had to restrain it. Titus, where's my suit? Titus looked down at the floor. Buzz, I've been thinking about it. I think one of us should stay. What do you mean, stay? Stay where? Titus gave Buzz a meaningful look. Buzz's mouth fell open. I'm not saying it would be you, said Titus. Then why didn't you bring my suit? What's in the bag? Buzz's dreams of earthly fame and riches were crashing down. Calm down, Buzz. No one's forcing you to do anything you don't want to do. But you are asking me to stay. You said come hell or high water, we'd all be going back to Earth. Well, Buzz, clearly your answer is no, said Titus. And that's okay. Then where's my suit? You can wear my suit. The bag is just some clothes, vitamin supplements, and picture books. Picture books? Asked Buzz, bemused. To hopefully teach the aliens. Yeah. But you still haven't explained why the hell you even asked me to begin with. Let me explain. If we're taking a hostage, it only seems fair and commensurate to leave one of our own. Just as we will have an alien to study, they'll have a human to study. Oh, great. I've always wanted aliens to kidnap me and do science experiments on me. Have you lost your mind? I didn't expect you to understand, said Titus. Peter doesn't want to stay either. So, it's going to have to be me. Titus took off his helmet. Buzz gaped at him. You? Are you sure? I don't particularly want to, but I think it's the right thing to do. Come on, man, said Buzz. Stop being so high-minded. They won't even notice we took one of them. They all look the same. Even if they do, who cares? Buzz, how would we like it if a few aliens came and broke our stuff, kidnapped someone, and then just left forever? That would be amazing. But it'd be a whole lot more amazing if one of the aliens stayed, and people got to learn all about it. I'm going to be the most fascinating thing ever to them. Buzz couldn't believe his ears. He was actually serious about it. You realize you'll never see Earth again. You'll be stuck in this rock for the rest of your short life. One human life doesn't count for anything in the scheme of things, said Titus. Besides, I'm not keen on sitting on that ship for another 2 years. But you go back and tell them about the planet. and about this very greenhouse. Maybe, by the time the next people get here, I will have created some goodwill and understanding. Titus rested his helmet on a fork in the tree branches. Now help me out of this suit. Chapter 17. No Goodbyes. Buzz walked away from the greenhouse, looking down at his feet as they marched into the deepening gloom. It was as though his feet had a mind of their own, or so Buzz told himself. They were carrying him away from the man who had been Buzz's closest friend over the past 2 years, away from the man who had completely changed the course of Buzz's life. So Titus really was staying. He'd go down in history, thought Buzz. He'd overshadow both him and Peter. Should he turn around and wave? Buzz hated saying goodbye. It always seemed to make things more painful. Titus had made it easy with his last words. Just go, Buzz. Peter needs you. Buzz had half expected that Titus would still come, that he and Peter could come back and talk him out of it. But now Buzz wished that he'd thanked Titus for taking a chance on him, thanked him for bringing him on the mission and giving meaning to his father's death. Buzz turned to look back. His heart sank. Titus was gone. Thank you, Titus. Buzz swallowed, fighting to keep his composure. Suddenly, Peter's voice burst through the radio. Buzz jumped. Titus, what's taking so long? I don't like being left alone with this green little monster. Peter, this is Buzz. Where's Titus? Didn't he tell you? I think he told me he told you. Tell me what? He's staying behind, Buzz said slowly. Peter went silent for a moment. What? Has he lost his mind? He says if we take one of theirs, they deserve to have one of ours. Buzz, get him on the radio right now. I can't, Peter. He's already gone. He's gone deeper into the greenhouse. I'm walking back to the ship right now. God, so I'm going to have to risk my own skin to go find him and talk some sense into him? Peter, the greenhouse is too big. We won't find him. And we need to look after the alien. Silence. God, why does Titus always have to be so... Peter's voice cracked with emotion. High-minded, suggested Buzz. Peter cleared his throat. That's it. Or does he just have such a low opinion of humans that he doesn't want to go back to Earth? Lord knows he's already had enough fame. Spent enough years in the public eye. Buzz could now make out the small light next to the ship. Maybe he's right, said Buzz. Maybe he can soften up the aliens before the next human's visit. How's our new friend doing? He's been trying to chew through the straps. Doesn't seem to like being tied up. It's going to be a long trip back to Earth, said Buzz. Let's just hope he's not the death of us. At least he's not bigger than we are. Imagine how much trouble we'd have if he were the size of a gorilla. Also, he calmed down when I moved all of the lamps next to him. These guys really like sunbathing for some reason. It's almost like they're half animal, half plant. Have you tried feeding him? Not yet. I think that's going to be a two-man job. Well, I'll see you in a jiffy, said Buzz. Let's get out of here, shall we?